Going into this offseason, what are some of the adjustments the Vikings need to do as a whole to be more competitive next year?
So I'm going to address the first thing. For those of you saying Kirk Cousins needs to go, I think you're absolutely ridiculously just lackluster in your knowledge of football. I mean, since he's been in Minnesota, the man has put up 4,000 yards a season, except for 2019, in which his touchdown to interception ratio was still impeccable. And in that season, it was 26-6. I'm not saying that he's the quarterback for the next 10 years or that he's going to play until he's 45 like Tom Brady. But for those of you saying you got to let him go, you got to trade him, I think you're crazy. Minnesota's got a shit ton more problems than just Kirk Cousins. I think first and foremost, they need to build up the offensive line, specifically focalizing in the interior of that line. Both guards, maybe even the center position. Kirk Cousins was consistently getting pressure from both the A and the B gaps all season long, especially in the postseason. Yes, the Giants did not officially sack him in that game, but he was knocked around at least 11 to 12 times, and that was a repeat offense in multiple games. He was when they got blown out by Dallas, when they were getting pressured by Philadelphia earlier on in the season, when they played against Green Bay in the second time. I mean, Minnesota just could not get anything going from a protection standpoint. And if you need any quarterback to survive, you need to have an offensive line, and that is 100% going to start on the interior. Second, you got to have cornerback depth. There was a multitude of times where corners were just getting beat in a lot of games. Again, the Dallas game, they were just running up the score. Outside of Patrick Peterson, who is getting into the older portion of the latter half of his career, you are going to need somebody that is going to be locked down on the outside, someone that is going to be able to contain a number one, a number two receiver, or at least play to a competent football level. We've talked about this on multiple episodes and segments. Minnesota had the second worst defense in the NFL all year and the worst ranked playoff defense outside of Seattle. You don't have a 12-4 record or a 13-4 record for no reason, right? And those four losses were four horrible losses. Most of them were blowouts by a multitude of scores. And then you go into the postseason and you let a 6-seeded Giants team that just got embarrassed by Philadelphia go into your house and you get just demolished. I mean, I know it wasn't a blowout or anything like that, but you just looked lost on all sorts of the on the defensive side. So it's definitely going to be, for me, like I said, interior offensive line. You're going to need cornerback depth, and you're going to need linebacker depth. I mean, Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones were absolutely torching you in terms of rushing the football. Tony Pollard in the Dallas game killed you. Ezekiel Elliott in his diminished role was killing you. Obviously, Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts. Again, I'm focusing on the losses because those are the games that matter the most. Is when everybody has to focus on, well, what happened in the games that they struggled in, or what happened in games that they didn't look electric in. Those are going to be key pieces. You can technically throw in maybe like to combine with the linebacker spot as an edge rusher, but overall, I mean, when you're talking about just coverage, you're going to need linebackers that are going to be able to cover, tackle, make plays, force turnovers. I know that the 49ers have Fred Warner. I know the Colts have Shaquille Leonard. I know that those linebackers don't exactly come so often, but if you're able to find a linebacker in the draft that's able to tackle and wrap up, somebody in free agency that's available to create and force turnovers, lead that defense, I think that is going to change the dynamic and the culture of the Minnesota defensive side of the football. Like I said, interior, offensive lineman, you got to go with the cornerback position and find some coverage areas. And then linebacker, you got to have somebody to lead this defense and make those big tackles and big plays.